And welcome. This is Impact 2023, our continuing conversation where we talk about all types of topics: race, religion, politics, current events, everything that you can think of. We talk about here in a safe place where we can have open and honest conversation, honest and open dialogue. And in order to do that, we ask that you type your questions and your comments into the comment section. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube, please feel free to type those in. And in real time, we will address those questions. The beautiful part about dialogue is that you get to say what you want to say and not just listen to what I have to say. And so, as always, we try to hop right into the topics of the day. Just to be clear, we don't have a guest today, so we will be hitting a topic. Hopefully, we'll be able to get back to having our regularly scheduled guests come in and out in the future. But if anyone out there, may want to be a guest, go ahead and drop a line. You can always contact us here with a phone call or just let us know. We are open to dialogue of different people and different views. Or if you have a topic idea that you want to drop in as well, we're open to that, because what we really do want to do is be able to address the topics that are most applicable to people's daily lives. All right, and so as always, we hop right into it. This one is a little bit different from the norm. This one comes from the business world and kind of the government. And so in the business world, you've seen a rise in the last 3 years of diversity and inclusion, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, or inclusion and diversity departments, jobs, those type of things in different organizations. So you would see private organizations would then have a chief diversity officer or chief inclusion officer or diversity and inclusion department and an equity department. And the job of this department, based on some of the situations of 2020 and even a little earlier, was to make sure that the company and their hiring practices and the people that they have in there were diverse and inclusionary. And so you just didn't have all of the same type of people. You had intentional efforts towards getting people of different races, people of different cultures, people of different sex and gender or gender identities. It can be a small amount of diversity or a large amount of diversity. And there were business reasons for this. There were money reasons for this. There are blind spots that you couldn't see. And so it made your business and your business decisions more applicable to more people. And so, for example, if I was a company that I made products that people purchase, food products, and I brought in a more diverse team, I would then have some more different opinions. So I don't just, make products for people in the Midwest. I can make products for people in the North, in the South. I don't make products for people who are just Black. I may then have to open up, and then I can do products for people who were different palettes. So Black people, white people, Hispanic people. And you're saying, well, people are all people. No, there are different tastes, we're in different cultures that you may not see, that may be markets that you can open up into. And so that's why diversity, inclusion inside of the workplace, what it does is it brings in people and brings in opportunities that you may not normally see. And that was the business and the dollar value of it. And so, again, if I bring in people with different ideas who can then open me up to different markets, I can sell more of my product. I hope that makes sense. I hope that's clear. So again, diversity and inclusion. Let's bring in different types of people into the boardroom at different levels so that we can have different conversations, and it'll allow us to then serve more of the population and serve them in a better way. And so it used to be cultural sensitivity training that they used to have, but they basically, you change that to make it diversity and inclusion so that your company or your organization can more broadly reflect the general population. And so if the general population is almost 50% diverse groups, then your inside of your company should be closer to that 50% number than 80%, white and only 20% other. Government organizations did the same thing. And so you would have a lot of government organizations who decided to put in diversity and inclusion with some of the similar reasons. Now, it's not to make money, but it may be to address the concerns of populations. So if you are the environmental agency, or if you are a some kind of agency that really touches people, social working agency, and you deal with a lot of people, as most government agencies do, having diversity and inclusion inside reflects then the population that you're sort of dealing with. And so you have to, and it has to be intentional. You can't just say, well, let's just hire the best people, because the best people are all different races and cultures. Let's make sure we hire the best people and also a diverse population of people so that we can then serve the population. All right, so I'm really trying to explain this and kind of get this into play. So government agencies did that. Schools, colleges, not schools, but colleges started to do that. They wanted to have diversity and inclusion in their hiring process to make sure that we have different type of professors, different type of people inside of the scholastic organization, the collegiate organization, at different levels, different type of administrators and everything. And that, again, that helps you to address the population. Now, why do we bring that up? Because right now a conversation is then having, or is being had, about diversity and inclusion. In certain states, certain people are now attacking diversity and inclusion and trying to get those offices taken out. Of course, somebody, Florida, of course, they're getting rid of diversity and inclusion. They're trying to make that, they don't want that in any kind of government organization. So no government organizations and no schools or colleges, I keep saying schools, but colleges should be able to have those type of offices and those type of officers and people who are concentrating on, making sure that, the working population reflects more so the general society. And so they're working that way. There are also some governments who are trying to make sure that private organizations can't do it as well. They're trying to make laws to kind of make that illegal by calling it discriminatory to focus on diversity. Now hear that. They think it's discriminatory to focus in on diversity, inclusion, equity. It's discriminatory to be included. So anyway, that's now the conversation then comes into, well, we know the group who initially is starting that. Those are people who really, they don't want diversity and inclusion because that doesn't allow them to be discriminatory. And so it's also a backlash of the whole inclusionary environment. They don't like the fact that transgender people are getting rights and LGBTQ are getting rights. They don't like the fact that women have rights, or they don't like the fact that people of color have rights. And so they're kind of pushing back against that. You have that group there, but then you have a legitimate conversation of whether or not focusing in on diversity and inclusion and making that a priority, whether or not that is something that is good or bad. And so I think about it in because again, we talk about the church. I think about it here. Should a church have diversity and inclusion? Should there be an intentional effort to diversify and include people of different backgrounds and cultures in not only in the pews, but also in the leadership? Is that an idea? And so you have different churches, different cultural churches. You have urban churches and suburban churches. You have churches that are, majority Black, majority white. You have mixed churches, majority Hispanic, majority Asian. You have different types of churches. So less so on the diversity and inclusion of races, because a lot of times you know people go to different types of churches because that's what they go to. If I want to go to a black church, I want to go to a black church. If I want to go to a white church, I want to go to a white church. If I want to go to a mixed church, but more so in our leadership and the things that we do, is that something that we should be focusing on? And so I know that there's a lot of people who have problems with women in certain positions in the church. But having a diversity and inclusion type of mindset kind of breaks some of that down, especially for the newer generation. But the question is that should that be a focus in places like churches? And should that be allowed to be a focus outside of the church? And so in these organizations, I'll tell you straight up, I think it's absolutely nuts that anybody would want to try to tell a business to not focus in on diversity and inclusion, especially when they can see that it helps their bottom line, or just from their moral standpoint that that's what they choose to do. It's a private business. You do what you want to do. From the school, collegiate standpoint, the government standpoint, I think it's just as crazy. You would want your government, you would want your government operations, you want your government officials to reflect the population out there. You have to, and that's always been my thing about government, is that you have to have services for everybody. And that's the difference between what sometimes what charitable organizations and churches and everything provide. They can provide services to who they can see, whereas governments can provide services to everybody. That's in a locale. They have a wider reach, and so you would think I would need to have a diverse population here to make sure that I can address all the different types of people that are out here. In the church, the question is, do we still need that same kind of effort and that same kind of intentional goal? Should we be pushing to say, all right, look, we only have, such and such churches we have 5 pastors, all of them are male. We need to make sure we have a female pastor. We have 5 pastors, all of them are married. Let's try to get one that's single. Or we have 5 pastors, all of them are in a certain generation as far as age range. Let's try to get one that's a little younger or a little older. To an intentional effort towards diversity and inclusion. To those who are going to be on the more extreme side and say, well, we have people of, certain races. Let's bring in some other races just to make sure that we can cover the whole gambit. Or even the super extreme side, you have those churches who want to bring in people of different gender identities and say, well, we have people in leadership of this gender identity. We want to make an intentional effort to do that. Now, that goes with whatever your particular church, wherever y'all are concentrating on. But I do think there may be some value in taking a look, walking outside your particular church, walking outside and saying, all right, let me look at the community that I have and let me be intentional in trying to get a more diverse group in here, especially in the leadership in here, so that then we can address the people that are in our area. Community churches aren't as big as they used to be. That's, more so a thing of the past than it is now, because everybody has cars and transportation. But there's still a little bit of air of community churching going on, where you have the people who are in your community that go to your church. And so our efforts and our thoughts on diversity and inclusion. I'll say I do believe that there's a place for it, but I don't know how much of a place for it. I don't know how much we should concentrate on it. And I don't know whether or not it's going to bring the same type of value. One of the things about churches is people go to different churches all the time because they want to find the one that fits for them. Maybe, maybe. But people go to different churches, if I'm that country, I may not want to go to a country church. If I'm not wealthy, I may not want to go to a wealthy church. If I'm not urban, I may not want to go to an urban church. If I'm not white, I may not want to go to a church that's majority white. If I'm not black, I may not want to go to that. And so I need to fit somewhere that I am comfortable. And sometimes that comfort level is being around people who are like yourself. And so having diversity and inclusion may not be the thing in a lot of these churches, because diversity and inclusion may not be where everyone is comfortable. You may be comfortable being diverse on an everyday basis. You're comfortable going out to the store or having people in your family that are diverse. But when it comes to your relationship with God and serving, and serving your church, you may not be as comfortable, and it may be getting in the way of your relationship with God. I don't know. But I do know that people go to different types of churches. I know that there's plenty of churches that I would not. I've been to a lot of churches over my time, what I think is a lot. And there's plenty of them that I know that I could not get with. I would not be comfortable with you. And so, and it's because of the type of people that are in there, to be frank and honest. And so if my church became more diverse and brought in a lot of them, and when I say them, the people that I'm not comfortable with, then I'm not going to want to be there. And I'm going to have to go somewhere where I need to be comfortable. So the value of diversity and inclusion in that particular situation would not help me. Now, is that my problem? Should I just be more inclusionary myself and stretch my comfort level to be able to accept everybody in the same, not accept everybody because you accept everybody, but to be able to be in relationship with everybody the same way? Or is it okay for me to just want to be in relationship with who I want to be in relationship with? So it's a weird question. It's a hard one for people, because you got to be honest, and that's a place that we aren't usually at right now in our society. Honesty is not a thing that we do. We can't really be honest anymore, because people will beat you up on you say the wrong thing and offend this group, they're mad at you. You say the wrong thing and offend this group, you're mad at you. But I would like to know what other people think. Is there a value there to pushing diversity inside of the church? Is there a value there for pushing diversity to make sure that we have leaders and members who are from diverse backgrounds? Or, is it okay for us to just stay on the path of the flock that we're supposed to go after is the flock that we're supposed to go after? And if that flock they're all the same, then that's who we need to get. And our job, there's plenty of churches, and our job is to get this group here. Your job is to get this group here. And we don't necessarily have to target each other's group. Whoever wants to come in our doors, we will serve. Whoever comes, whoever can come to us, or whoever we meet on our evangelical outings, we will meet. But we're not going to target certain groups and target certain people, because we're going to target the flock that we're supposed to be, or to target the group of people that we're supposed to be going after. So there's different ways to look at it, and I don't know what one is the right one. What I do know is that it's not what's not right is to tell somebody that you can or cannot have diversity and inclusion, or cannot focus on it. So if a church does want to focus on it, that should be 100% fine. But that's the hot topic. Honestly, that's where we are. That is one of the hot discussion points, especially where we are in society. A couple of years ago, it was the big thing. Everybody did it in every type of business, every type of organization, all walks of life, where we said we need to get more diverse. We need to make sure that we open up for all people. But is that the appropriate move to make now? The apostles are diverse. That's a great point. That's a great point. They're not all the same. Not all the same. And let's switch back. You apostles and disciples. You look at them and you look at from where they came, the different walks of life that they came from. You got people who were blue collar workers, fishermen, and things. You had people who were tax collectors. You had a gambit of different folk, and so, but they were able to get together and all work together. So the diversity of leadership, but at the same time, when they make their organizations and their churches, do they have to get together, or is it that they can then go out and, you know, a church over here for this group, a church over here for that group? Another comment: the church may be diverse and inclusive in regards to who they attract. However, the goal of the church is not to make everyone the same, or same type of Christians. Anyone can come, but the expectation is that all become Christians. Yeah, and I think that's where it hits. That's a great point. Diversity and inclusion is, and I'm going to re-say what's already been said. It's diversity and inclusion in who we attract, but when it comes in, we can't become diverse and inclusionary in our philosophy of what we're doing. We can't change what we do and who we are to be inclusionary. And I think that's a great point. And I think that is also the fear for some folk, and also the challenge for some folk. You know, we look at churches, and when they're making decisions about what are going on right now in pop culture, in pop culture, common culture, social culture, and you look at some of the things when you're talking about some of the things that are acceptable now that weren't acceptable then, and you look at some churches who are sitting back here and saying, "Yeah, let's accept all of this, so we can become more inclusionary, more inclusionary." Now, if you have things like what we have. You know, it was a time where everybody had to dress up to go to church, or were supposed to dress up. Women were supposed to have dresses. Men were supposed to have suit and tie. To become more inclusionary, we said that that's not a thing. You don't have to have that. And being more inclusive, that allowed different cultures to come in. People who come from countries where they don't really wear suit and ties, and that's not the thing of what they do. That allowed different types of folk to come in. People who didn't have that type of clothing, they didn't have suits and ties and things like that, because it's not where they put their money towards. Or people who just didn't want to wear that, and so it became more inclusive. But what it didn't do is change anything about Christianity or about who we were as a church or who we are as a church. And so it wasn't like we were saying, okay, in the Bible it says to do this, but we're gonna bypass that so that we can be more inclusive. And so that's not what we did as churches when we decided that you don't have to, you know, you have on a particular outfit to come in and serve the Lord. Where it gets problematic is when you get into some of these situations where people are trying to bend the rules of the Bible and trying to say, well, we're going to be more inclusive and diverse, and so we're just going to ignore some of the teachings of the Bible. I know some churches that have done that. Can't even talk. The real question is, what does it mean to be Christian? Yeah, I think that is the real question. So, yeah, what does it mean to be Christian? So, what's important and what's not important? You know, does wearing a tie mean you're a Christian? No. You know, does saying that people with diverse gender identities, having them around you and in your presence, does that make you a Christian or not a Christian? All the questions, you know, where, you know, churches are going back and forth. Does having women in charge make you Christian or not a Christian? The little things that we sit back and we talk about and we fuss about. So yeah, what does it mean to be Christian? Do those other things matter? And so, you know, most of the time, no, most of this stuff doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter. Honestly, they sit back and, you know, we got all the different ways that we baptize people. Doesn't matter. Or we got all the different churches and, you know, different traditions, different things that you do, where we fuss about the fruits of the Spirit and which one you may have. You know, does this make you Christian versus does this make you Christian? You got some of the extreme places where if you drink caffeine, you're not Christian. Like, what? So yeah, I think we need to focus in on what does it mean to be Christian, and then that allows us to be as diverse as possible once we know what Christianity is about. And then, you know, everything else that it's not about, everything that's a tradition, those things don't really matter. That's I think that is a conversation that's going on against all walks of life, or all organizations in all different places. Whether diversity and inclusion is a goal that we should have, and it's something that we should do. And I think again, when people are having things out there, I think we need to have those same conversations in here. And I think it's important. Is that a goal, or is that something that the church should have? And some of us got to get over ourselves when it comes to diversity and things like that, especially when we have some old antiquated ideas on who should be in charge, or who we should follow and who we shouldn't. Some of that stuff that we think, or some of that stuff that we do, is just our opinion and our thoughts. Like those people who sit back here and say, I can only be with a pastor who has a bunch of different titles, doctor, such and such, great bishop, number one, such and such, somebody who's written books, or somebody who has a private jet, and things like that. A lot of the stuff that we get on as people is pointless, and I think it gets us in bad situations. And so, we got to get over ourselves. And so diversity and inclusion means that we got to get over ourselves. So the people who we think, the typical folk, the stereotypical way that we look at different people who need to be in charge or who need to be Christians, we got to throw that out. And as the comment was said, what does it mean to be Christian? We need to figure out exactly what that is. If we don't already know, like if we know exactly what it means to be a Christian, and then just focus on that. And then everything else, every other package that it looks like, if it's a Christian, it's a Christian. Doesn't matter if the package is blue, red, green, whatever. If it's a Christian, it's a Christian. And we need to just focus on being a Christian. All right. Well, that's it. Kind of, straight to the point, straight to it. Great comments again today. Thank you for those opportunities. Got another comment. Is color important? Is gender important? Is Christianity who or what we are, or is it what we do? There it goes. Is it who we are or what we do? That's like I said, is it the packaging on the outside, or is it the things that you do? Because a lot of people look like Christians, and I know we've all heard this before. It's a lot of people who look the part, but then they act terrible. Or a lot of people who don't look the part, but they are true Christians, true Christians. And so I think that's important. What we do, and as long as we're doing what we're supposed to do, and diversity should not change. Diversity, inclusion, equity, any of those goals that people may have should not change what we do, especially for the worse. All right. Well, thank you for those comments. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. As always, we're here on Thursdays at 7:00. We have Thursday Thirst, our Bible study. And then on Sundays as well, YouTube and Facebook, we have service at 10:00. Please feel free to join us and tell everybody to join us as well that would like to. And then we're here every week. Next week, 8:00, same place, YouTube, Facebook, Impact 2023. Thank you, and have a good one.